Welcome to the My Career, My Calling podcast, a voice of hope for people of faith in the marketplace. This podcast is brought to you by the Marketplace Missions Movement, a not-for-profit organization supporting Christians seeking to identify, develop, build, and expand their ministries and calling into the marketplace. The movement is seeking to empower, build up, and activate believers for authentic and impactful participation in sharing the message and love of Jesus Christ and demonstrating the principles of the kingdom of God in their workplaces and through their professions. Meet our moderator, Dr. Stephanie Fletcher-Larty, a well-rounded public health professional, researcher, author, strategic leadership advisor, gospel musician, and spiritual leader. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the My Career, My Calling podcast. Please stay tuned as we bring you another inspiring discussion to help build you up on your purpose-driven journey in the marketplace. Hello. Welcome to this another episode of the My Career, My Calling podcast. Well, I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Fletcher-Larty, and I'm really delighted to be here with you today. Now, as you know, one of the things we do on this platform is to really showcase what is happening with family and friends around the world, people who are really, working to fulfill their purposes. And we really try to bring a message of faith on this platform because we want people to know that you can fulfill and live out your God-given purpose. Today, I am going to be starting a new series on the virtual book tour. Oh, yes. We are going to be doing the virtual book tour series where I am going to be interviewing various authors from around the world as part of this book tour. And we will be showcasing their work through their literary arts, but we are also going to be sharing the message. And the messages we will share is going to be in keeping with our theme of this podcast, which is My Career, My Calling. So we're going to share about their books and how that aligns and connects with their career, their calling, or you might be able to find some encouragement from what they are sharing. So I hope you will stay tuned as we get into our podcast for today, because I've got an exciting time ahead that I want to share with you. We have a special guest in studio with us today who is going to be sharing with us tips to help you fulfill your dreams, even after diagnosis with a deadly disease. So I hope you stay tuned as I bring my special guest on stage. But before I do that, I want to say a very special, a warm welcome to you all. Good day, Alison, and everyone who is joining us online. I want to take this opportunity to ask you, wherever you're joining us from, share this link and invite someone, because I believe that today, my guest and I will be able to not only inspire you, but you will be able to find hope through this testimony that we're about to bring you. So I'll give you just a moment to say hello and invite someone as I get ready to bring my guest on stage. Don't go away. We are coming right up with that. And at this time, I want to introduce to you my very special guest, Minister Alicia Anderson. Good afternoon to you over there in Jamaica. Please unmute your microphone.
Okay. Good afternoon. Good evening here in Jamaica. Not sure what of the time it is for you, but it's 6 p.m. in Jamaica.
Good evening. It is a good morning to you from Australia. It's just a few minutes past 9 a.m. And I'm super delighted to be sharing this platform with you today. Wow. And the first thing that struck me when I saw you was your most radiant smile. And And I know we are in for a treat today, and it's such a pleasure to have you here on this platform with me. Now, we've got a few people who are watching us online, and I'd love for you. I actually, yesterday, last night, I was at church, and one of my church colleagues, one of my fellow ministers, came to me and said, I saw the ad for your podcast for tomorrow, and I'm going to make sure I'm there because I really would love to hear this testimony. And so there are some excited people who have joined us online, and I want to say a big shout out to them. To all who are watching us live, I welcome you now as we are going to be speaking on a very important topic with our guest today. And we're going to share, she's going to share her own journey, as she calls it, life to rebirth. All right. So, Minister Alicia Anderson, we don't want to keep our audience in suspense. Please introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself with us. Just, who are you? And, just a minute or so. Just introduce yourself to our audience.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie, for having me once again. And good morning, good evening, good night, world, wherever you are watching from. So I am Alicia Anderson, otherwise known as Minister Alicia Anderson. I am the director of Life the Rebirth. Life the Rebirth is about restoring faith, hope, and love to tainted lives. A little bit about me. I enjoy the things of God. I'm very passionate about the things of God. I like to see people being healed, delivered, restored. Um, I am now believing that my whole life existence is becoming who I am today. So that's a little bit about Alicia Anderson.
Wow. Wow. Yes, Life the Rebirth. Can you share a little bit with us about Life the Rebirth? What is Life the Rebirth and what is it that you do? Just give us a little bit more information about that.
Sure. So Life the Rebirth was birthed out of my own personal journey, my own personal testimony. Um, in I don't really want to preempt
Yes.
my testimony, but
Yeah.
it started out of my pain. And with
Yeah.
that, I was like, God, what the enemy meant for evil, you turn it around for good. So I thought about life for what it was, but for what it will become. So that's where the life came about. And then one day, a friend of mine said, I was like, life, I want to celebrate life, not for what it was, but for what it is now. And he said, rebirth. And I was like, wait, what do you mean rebirth? And when he explained, I was like, yes, that is it. Life, the rebirth. So, life, the rebirth, as I said, it's about restoring faith, hope, and love to tainted lives, through the
Yeah.
sharing of the gospel of Jesus Christ and through my own personal testimony. So basically, what Life to Your Birth is about, me being the individual who has gone through life's journey, gone through a lot of struggles, has many testimonies, and using that to glorify God, to bring people to Christ through his love and the demonstration of his love and through the gospel of Jesus Christ. And as I said, through my own personal testimony. So I go into
Great.
the schools, I go to workplaces, and I go to churches to share my journey.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right. So I know you've also shared a lot about your journey in your book. And because we're on the book tour, we really need to talk about your book. And I know we'll get a little bit more into your own personal story, even as you share about the book. So please introduce your book to us. If you have a copy there, please make sure you hold it up so we can see it. Yeah. What's
This
your book
is the
about?
copy.
It's
Can we
beautiful.
all see it?
Yes, we can.
Right. So the title of my book is HIV, My Journey Through Grace.
Yes.
Right. This book came about like for years. Just because as the topic says, HIV, my journey through grace. So it's really talking about my journey living with HIV and how long I've been living with it, what it was like before I was infected, what it was like in between, and when I found out, and how life has been after. Trust me, guys, you need to go get a copy of this book. You'll understand more of why I had to go through the process, even in producing this book, how long it took and all of that. So it's a book of hope, hope for those who feel as though it doesn't have to be a diagnosis of HIV/AIDS, it can be of any other thing that you're going through. It's a book to demonstrate God's love, His grace, and His mercy, and to give you hope that in spite of what you're going through, there is still hope in it.
Awesome. Awesome. So I love the fact that your book is really about your personal experiences, your personal encounter, because I love
Mm.
those books. It helps you to connect with the author on a whole different level. And I know that you weren't born with HIV. So let's start from the beginning. As a child growing up, what was your dream? Growing up as a child, before you had this experience with HIV.
All right, growing up as a child, I oftentimes would watch TV and
Mm-hmm,
I would see like Joel Osteen or Joyce
mm-hmm,
Myers, and I always said, I want to be like them. Like,
mm-hmm.
traveling the world, being a motivation to other people. So growing up, I developed, the love of I wanted to do counseling. I don't know where it came from, but I just always wanted to give people good advice and stuff. And I always love writing. So I said,
Yeah,
I want to be a counselor or I want to be a journalist, or probably I just be both. So a counselor and a journalist was my childhood dream.
yeah. Nice. So you wanted to be a counselor and a journalist. So you loved that journalistic side of life. And I can see how that has even contributed to you becoming an author, because journalism has a lot of writing involved. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um and I can see how, your journey through your childhood, thinking about this dream. What was that like? Just thinking about growing up to become a journalist. Did you get to do any of that? Did you finally accomplish that dream? Like, even before your diagnosis, was did that happen for you?
Somewhat.
Yeah, share a little bit.
Somewhat.
All right.
Hold.
So, can you hear us? So hello. I think we are frozen a little bit. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you are on the My Career, My Calling program today. We have a very special guest with us, joining us live from Jamaica, Alicia Anderson. I'm the author of HIV, My Journey Through Grace. And she is sharing with us her story about how she experienced HIV as a young woman. And she was just sharing with us about her ministry, Life the Rebirth, that she started after she had this encounter with a potentially life-threatening illness, and she has been able to give birth to a ministry as a result of that. So thanks for your patience. So Minister Alicia, you as a young woman, as a young child, you really would see these inspirational people online, and you thought, when I grow up, I'd love to be like one of those people. Now, so you grew up, entered your teenage life and so on. Were you able to actually accomplish any of that? Yeah, how did life play out after school, and after you graduated? What did you end up doing as a graduate from school?
All right. So I can say somewhat. When I was in high school, my guidance counselor, because I grew up, as people would say, I grew up being a troubled child, right? And many people would not have understood what was happening. But in high school, the guidance counselor, I'd always be going to the guidance counselor's office. And I think that's where I developed that counseling thing that I wanted to do. I enjoyed, talking with her and stuff. But with the writing aspect, she saw that in me. So she would say,
Yeah.
Alicia, come, I want you to write something. And I remember she asked me, it was Guidance Counselors Week, and she asked me to write an article. And I did. And she said, Alicia, they put it on exhibition in Tom Redcam Library. And I was like, what? Like, what?
Wow.
What did you just say? Right. And I remember I wrote probably one or two articles in the Gleaner, like it was a poem or a story or something to that. So I got the opportunity there. Persons would always be coming to me for advice. And like sometimes I'd be like, but there's other people you can go to who are more professional. But I always had a knack of encouraging persons from a very young age till even today. With that being said, I've wet my foot in counseling. Sometimes I think about, no, this is just too much. So I like the spiritual aspect of when people come to me and I can encourage them. But the technical part of counseling with writing, the papers and all of that, no, that's a whole lot. So I'm kind of iffy, should I really follow through with the whole counseling aspect? But with the writing aspect, I became the author of HIV, My Journey Through Grace. So after leaving high school, um, it was a little bit rocky after leaving high school because I went back to do more subjects. Went to a pre-university. I ended up dropping out of the pre-university for things that was happening. And it was just like probably 4 years ago that I had the opportunity to wet my foot with counseling and becoming an author of HIV, My Journey Through Grace.
Awesome. That is pretty spectacular. And we've mentioned about HIV, my journey through grace. So I'd love to hear about, your HIV journey. you know, can you share a little bit with us about, your diagnosis? When did you discover this, and what was that like for you as a potentially budding author, a potentially budding counselor, a passionate minister, can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. I want to backtrack a little bit first concerning
Yes.
my journey with God.
Yeah.
Before
Sure.
I found out about my diagnosis, before it was even in the making, I remember I was saying to the Lord, I want to come home to you fully. I want to find a good church where I can settle in. And if you're calling me for full-time ministry, I'll serve you in full-time ministry. I'm asking for the husband and I'm asking for the kids. If you give me all of that, I will serve you full-time in ministry. And I remember I was
Mhm.
on a search because where I was before at the church, there was something in me wanting more. I couldn't understand what that more meant, but I wasn't satisfied at where I was. So I was on a searching spree and I was telling God, God, you know, this is what I want because I don't believe you created me just to be here on earth, just to have sex, just to party, just to be smoking and drinking. Must be more to life. Because for me, going to a party was like the same boring people, the same boring music, the same boring alcohol. There must be more to life. So I was on a journey, and then here it is that I ended up in three different relationships. Starting one, realized it wasn't going anywhere. Started another one, realized that that wasn't really going anywhere. Cut off of that, and then just ended up with one person, and then finding out, which to me that came as a shock. And why it came as a shock was that when I went and I tested the month before, the results came out negative, and I'm like, okay, good, I'm good. And then because of life insurance, which is the next month I had to do a medical, that's when I found out. And I can tell you that like my whole life changed. I thought that after hearing this shocking news, because it was a shock, because when I did the test the month before, it was negative. So it was very shocking that couple weeks after I would have found out that I'm actually HIV positive. My whole life changed. the doctors explained that it could have been a lab error, which I honestly wish it was a lab error. Um, she also said, it would be good that you go and get the test done again, which that's what I did. And that's when I found out again that I was actually positive. Back in 17 years ago, I didn't have much knowledge of HIV back then. So I thought that, okay, once you get HIV, little bit after that, you go to full blown AIDS and you're going to die. So I gave myself a 5 year span saying that I'm going to die. So I believe that everything that I had dreams of, like becoming a counselor, um, getting married, having kids, um, just living life. I thought that within the 5 year period, I would have died. And just to show you that when God said purpose cannot die, I'm a living testimony of that purpose cannot die. Because 4 years ago, literally 4 years ago, Stephanie, if anybody told me that I would have lived to see 2024, I would tell them, y'all need to, within a fake prophecy, within a fake whatever, don't come here with it. If you had
Yes.
told me that HIV, my journey that I've been working on for 10 years, would finally come into a reality, I'd be like, look here, I don't want nobody giving a false hope. And then I say, my on my bed, waiting to die. Literally, I begged God to take me home. I said, God, I am here ministering to your people, bringing hope to these people, encouraging them to come and serve you. Backsliders, come home because God is good. He's been keeping me. For the past 17 years, Stephanie, I've never had to end up in a hospital unless I went there with the church to go and pray over people, to minister to them, not for my sickness at all. So 4 years ago, when I was literally at that door, I said, God, listen, I've been ministering to people. People are coming home to you. Back sinners are being saved and backsliders are coming home. This is why you leave me to God, skin and bone. God, you mean to tell me that I'm not gonna have kids? Because I mean, you gave me the husband. You gave me the husband, but God, where's the kids? Where is the me propelling in ministry? Where's all of these prophetic words that you have given me? And I said, God, here what? Here's the plan. Either you take me home or either you take me home or you heal me. I don't want out of the two because I'm tired. God, I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of, you know, being obedient. I remember, Stephanie, I said to the Lord 17 years ago, I said, God, if you heal me, radio station, TV, newspaper, you name it, right? The Bible says, don't make a vow if you can't honor it. And I remember when I was here on this bed, I said, God, I've honored my vows because there's no physical report as yet that says I'm HIV negative, but I've played my part. I've been doing. So, God, you have to show up. And 4 years later, he surely showed up because I'm now an author of a book. I never saw, well, the Lord showed me in a vision about me getting a certificate from overseas, but I didn't even know what that meant. I was like, God, how much more me I go study? My time to study now. I never saw the ordination coming. I never saw the book being this visual, like in my hands. I never saw it. I never saw it at all. And just to see what God has been doing, like just opening doors one after the other. Listen, I will tell everybody who is listening under the sound of my voice. We Jamaicans have a saying that says, one not dead, no dash it away. Listen, there is purpose on the inside of you. Allow the Lord to birth out that purpose that's on the inside of you.
Wow, man, that is powerful. You know, I need a moment. You know, I've never been in your situation, so I cannot say I understand. But
Right.
I've studied HIV because, I'm an epidemiologist. That's what I do. For the last 20 something years, I've studied
Yes.
diseases and I'm an infectious disease specialist. So I know what HIV is. I know what it does to people. And I remember that when I was doing my master's in 2006 to 2007 back in Jamaica, I had to do a family case study. And the group I was in, we got a young man who was not just HIV positive, he had full blown AIDS.
Wow.
And this young man, he went through a lot, and he shared his personal story with me about how he ended up contracting it. It was a it was a horror story, to be honest. And he also shared part of the struggle. I think at the time he was about 17, almost, yeah, about 17, almost 18 years old. He was very young. And he shared some of his struggles with us, in terms of his ability to follow his dreams. You know, he had great ambition as a child growing up. You know, as we all do, we think about, you know, what life will be like when we grow up. And then, you know, he actually was infected for several years and didn't know, because, you know, he was raped as a very young boy. And it took a lot of years for them to actually find out that he was infected. Um, and I'm really not sure what has happened to him, but I remember him with so much love in my heart today. So the ability to fulfill your dreams. How did this diagnosis impact you when you found out and you started to think about all these beautiful dreams you had for your career, for your life moving forward? Share with us a little bit about what was going through your head at that time, because I know, you know, you kind of go through this like sequel of different symptoms, and sometimes it can be very debilitating, like,
Right.
you know, can literally incapacitate you. As you got diagnosed and you started to think about your own personal dreams, can you share what that was like for you? Like, what are some of the emotions and the things that you experience, um, in that area?
As I said before, that when I was diagnosed, I thought that I was going to die within the 5 year period.
Yeah.
So to me, I wasn't going to fulfill anything that, because before I got infected, my whole life was planned out. I planned out my whole life that at age 24, I'm going to get married. At age 30, at my own counseling thing. Right. I had everything that was planned out, for me. And just to see that, okay, my whole life changed. Back then, I thought that HIV was a death sentence. You know, you're just going to die. But thank God for my family, number one. Thank God for close friends that I had. Some left while some stayed. And they're still here with me on this journey. That is why it's called My Journey Through Grace. Right? They've been there. And I remember I had a pastor friend, the church that I was visiting, where I got baptized first, and I was there for a while. I spoke to the assistant pastor. So we became very close. And I remember when I started doing these things, because like May 22nd was the day that I found out. So every year, May 22nd, I'd like to celebrate life, not for what it was, but for what
Mhm.
it is today. And one day he said to me, he said, Alicia, I see you going into schools. I see you going to churches. And I was like, really, Pastor? You really think so? And he said, yes. And I think it was because of the support of my family and close friends. It helped me. And I remember my sister said to me, Alicia, you always wanted to be a peer counselor. Now you have the opportunity to talk to young girls about this and let them know not to come down this road. So it's through that it motivated me. And I remember one day I said, God, what the enemy meant for evil, you turn it around for my good and for your glory. So I'm going to use this to glorify you. And with that, I made myself available, just to share my story. Many people thought that, oh, I'm just talking my business, but I know why I came out. I wasn't asked, I wasn't forced to, I wasn't paid to. But I got
Mhm.
infected at age 24. 24 for me is a prime age where we're just thinking about life, how we want to live our life. Some of us, we were drinking, we were smoking, we were having unprotected sex. We're living something called the so-called life, but it wasn't really life. And I
Yeah.
decided that I would put myself out there to encourage other people, especially young people. Don't come down this road. I know everything will glitter a gold. Them say you see the glimmer and the glitter, but it's not a bed of roses. And I can tell you, it's not a bed of roses. Some of the things that we're running down, it's not worth it at the end of the day. It's more trouble than anything else. And so I decided to take a negative situation and turn it into positive, even though I was already positive. Right? So it was positive plus positive. But that's what I did. And as I said, with the support of friends, then in 2010, I went back underwater, and my pastor supports me a whole lot. So that encouraged me to do what I'm doing and to just go more into whenever I get the opportunity to go to a school, to go to a workplace, to go to churches, to sensitize people on HIV/AIDS, but also to share my journey, my journey through grace, through God's grace, through His love and His mercy. Because um 4 years ago, Stephanie, my CD4, you should understand this. My CD4 was 20. My viral load was 817,191. You're looking on somebody who should have been buried 4 years ago. 4 years. So with
Wow.
that being said, when, as I said, I was on the bed waiting to die because I'm saying, God, I'm done. And to see how He has transformed, like my skin, I lost 50 pounds in the space of a month because I developed psoriasis. And trust me, compared to where my skin was 4 years ago, if you look at me today, you'll be like, nah, that's not you. They paid you to do this, or But I can tell you, God's love, His grace and mercy. Look at my skin today. You should have seen those pictures. Like Stephanie, there were days I didn't want to bathe. Why I didn't want to bathe? Because of the constant itching and my skin being bruised. Water just touching me alone would burn my skin. I went from using regular soap to baby soap, and even the baby soap it brought more irritation more than anything. I became skin and bone. When you looked on my face was sucked in. To me, I looked like a duppy. And when I went to church, people saw death written all over me. Look at 4 years later. Look at me 4 years later. So that is why I've said the Jamaican saying, one not dead, not dash it away. Purpose cannot die and it will not die in the name of Jesus.
Wow. Now, I want to just take a quick break here to just welcome all the people who are joining us from around the world on this amazing podcast, My Career, My Calling. Today, we are speaking with a very special lady. She's an author, a minister, a survivor, an overcomer, and her name is Alicia Anderson. Now, I'm seeing some people showing us a lot of love there on the chat in the comments. Mag Menz, God bless you. Thank you for showing up. Alison, Mark, and all the other people that are online. Now, guys, please show some love for this amazing woman who is not just sharing with us, but she's sharing her personal journey with HIV and AIDS. And she is uh, she's not just another sister. She's a woman who has dedicated her life to sharing her own lived experience with people to help them. Your situation may not be HIV, it could be cancer, or it could be something else. You might be battling with anything, but here we have someone who has been through death's door and has lived to tell the story. How amazing is
Amen.
it? So if you're online right now, I just want you to drop, just put an encouraging word in the chat for her. Say something to encourage our sister as because we're not done yet. We still got a few minutes to go because we're going to change gears and she's going to share with us about her ministry. So this young woman got infected with HIV AIDS. She had such a great plan for her own life. In the midst of that, HIV showed up And she didn't, at one point, she thought she would have died within the first 5 years, like most of us used to think, because several years ago, HIV for many people is more than a death sentence. It's a sure thing, right? But not only did she overcome and has lived for many years to tell the story, she is now using her own personal journey to encourage others. Minister Alicia, I am really inspired to hear your journey. Now, you started your ministry, Life the Rebirth. At what point in time along your journey did you eventually, because I know you had always wanted to be this counselor, you want to be this, you're naturally a motivational person. You have this ability to encourage and to uplift other people. But here you are going through this life sentence. Yeah. Not only is it like a life sentence on paper, you are feeling the physical effects in your own body. At what point in time did you give birth to your Life the Rebirth ministry?
It's funny you asked that because my high school friend asked me that the other day. Life Rebirth was birthed before I recommitted my life to the Lord. And it may sound funny, but it started before. Like I recommitted in 2010, but I've been living with HIV for 17 years. So let's do the math. 3 years before I came back to Christ, because it's 14 years now, I've been back with Christ. 3 years before coming back to Christ, I I started, like, I literally gave birth to this. Didn't understand fully what I was doing. I sometimes felt like I was over my head in doing what I was doing, but I got to understand more after I went back on the water in 2010, and where I am at church now, a member of the church, a minister of the church. It helps me to grow more, to be more effective in what I do. And one of the things that I'm learning, Stephanie, the one thing where may I run from is the one thing that the Lord is pushing me into. I just saw rebirth as me just sharing my testimony and people coming to Christ. But I realized that He's using me more to minister to persons on personal levels where it's not only my testimony, but through His word and through His word of knowledge. And with that, it's like, all right, God, I just thought it was about testimony. But one day my pastor said, Woman of God, you need to preach. And I said, Sir, what do you mean by preach? Are you saying teach or preach? He said, Preach. I said, Preach as in preach, preach. And he said, Yes. And I did it one time. And I was like, God, I ain't doing this again. But from time to time, he will pick on me and be like, Listen, it's not really a test. The testimony had to come to birth out other things. And so sometimes God will allow you to go through something, but that's not the main focus. That's not the big picture. It is just the starting point. So I believe that HIV was my starting point for me to be in ministry the way that I am today. Even though I still run from preaching the word and being obedient to whatever God has called me to. So that's where it started. It started 17 years ago, before I came back to Christ. And trust me, like, just doing what I'm doing, being able to be myself and allowing the Lord to use me in the capacity that He does, it's a blessing. I can tell you that.
That's amazing. And I love how you say that you kind of already gave birth to it, even though you feel like at that point in time you hadn't really fully come back to Christ, right?
Right,
And and in this, I'm hearing a few things coming through here, right? Because this is a purpose show. It's a show that we help people connect with their destiny and their career and their calling. And
right.
what I'm seeing playing out here is purpose had to prevail, right? Purpose was happening as
Yeah.
you are experiencing this trauma, and these things are happening to you. You are now, something inside of you is propelling you beyond your pain, and you are taking from the pain and transforming it and creating. And I think that is so powerful, because And I really want to encourage those who are listening to us. I hope you are really listening to deeper, just beyond even what she's saying on the surface. Because
Yeah.
initially she said that she in her mind thought, according to her limited understanding at the time, that she would have died within 5 years. And so for her to actually say, look, I know I'm going, it's like kind of like, did you kind of feel like, oh, well, I know I'm going to die, so I might as well try and do something before that? Is that kind of what was going through your mind initially?
Oh, yes, many times. Like, all right, can I just help the process a little bit faster?
Yeah.
But it's funny because growing up as a child, I was very suicidal, very suicidal. So
And why
especially
was
when
that?
this happened,
Why was that happening? What put you in that state? What was
there
happening
were just a
around?
lot of things that was happening. It's not like I saw somebody who did it. So I
Mm,
really don't understand where it came from. But I
mm,
just always felt like I didn't belong, I didn't fit in, nobody loved me, nobody cared about me. It's better, the world would be better without me. And the day that I found out, I literally like wanted to run across the street and any
mm,
upcoming car that was coming, that would have just been my demise right there. And even going through it, there were many times that I got, because we don't talk about the emotions, but
yeah.
it was a roller coaster. Like one minute I was okay, the next minute, God, I just want to come home, I can't do this. You don't see that I'm not effective, people don't care, nobody wants to hear about HIV, nobody wants to hear my story. God, are you sure that is you tell me to do this, or is it that is just the flesh wants to do it? So there were a lot of mixed emotions and stuff. But along
Mm,
life's journey, I realized that no, Alice, is not you. It is the God in you who is propelling you to
mhm.
greatness.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so amazing. And I love I love your transparency about this, and you are real about it. Because sometimes we tend to sugarcoat things, and because we are speaking about something in public, we sometimes want people to feel like, oh, it was just because I was strong, right? But I love the fact that you are saying that it wasn't just a walk in the park. It wasn't just like I was all full of faith and all of that, and I just trusted God. But there were ups and downs, and this is the reality of life.
Stephanie, can I say something?
Please go ahead.
Listen, the 4 years, well, the period in which when my CD4 was out of whack and my viral load was out of whack, I really lost a lot of weight. I lost leg muscles. It was hard to walk. With my skin coming off, the scales coming off my skin, and the whole 9 yards. Like literally, I just felt like, God, I just can't do this anymore. And I remember it was so bad that my family thought that I didn't want to take the medications because my body started rejecting the medications. And because
Yeah.
they had known that at some point on my life's journey, I decided to stand on faith. Faith without works is dead, number one. Two,
Hmm.
me taking the medication and get becoming undetectable. Undetectable doesn't mean that I'm healed. It just means that
Yeah.
I'm not able to transmit the virus to my partner. So I was
Mm,
standing on faith. I said, God, medication not gonna make me be healed. So I'm going to come off of this. Not recommending anybody to do this, but I came off of it and standing on faith. And when my CD4, when I had to be put back on medication, and my CD4 went to 20 and the viral load 817,191, I started questioning God. So my faith in God was being questioned because I'm saying, God, but here I am when I was off the medication, standing on faith. I never came down to this. And now when I'm on the medication, because the doctor said sometimes the Lord uses the medication to heal you, I'm taking the medication. I'm at death's door. Like, God, what is happening? And that's why I said, God, it's better you take me home or heal me. I lost leg muscles. I had to retrain my body. I had to be reintroducing food to my body. And with the medication, I literally had to be monitored. Big grown adults like me being where they had to monitor me, and no matter how they crushed it, they put it in drinks, you name it. I would bring
mm,
it up. Like the bathroom was my best friend between diarrhea and vomiting. And my brother-in-law, he said, come, we're going to take it. And I would have to put a sweetie in my mouth with them two bitter pill there and suck on it till that thing dissolved in my mouth. And
Wow.
I had to be doing that for a while. Till thank God it just came to me. Trick your mind. You're like, what? Trick your mind? Yeah, I tricked my mind. I told my mind that I am taking vitamins, not medication. And that is how today I can take my ARVs without any problems.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Now, at what point along your journey did you end up write? When did you write your book?
The book, as I said, it was over a 10-year period. I remember
Yeah.
because I've always been writing from a very young age. So I thought about writing the book, but wasn't sure if I should. And then the Lord used my auntie all the way from Austria to come to Jamaica and said that the Lord says it's time for you to write the book. And I said, all right, God, I hear you. And we have been working on it for like, it was like around 10 years. Persons who could have helped chose not to, or if they helped, they just didn't do much until the Lord blessed me with a church sister who said, Alice, I will help you to edit. I'm not into editing, but I'll help you to edit. And through that, it was doing a counseling course that I met somebody who is actually an author, and she recommended me to her publisher. And when I spoke with him, the first day that I spoke with him, he said, no, I give your book 2 weeks to be on the market. I was like, hold up, sir, hold up. He's like, I can't believe that book is published. I was like, it takes money. And he helped me until that book was published. And here I have it in my hand today. It is published.
Wow. And I'm just sharing on screen now. That's the cover of Alicia's book, and it is this book is HIV My Journey Through Grace. Now, for those who would love to buy your book, um, can you just maybe share just the table of contents with us? What have you covered in the book? Just maybe quickly share
Sure.
what we will find when we get into this book, and really encourage someone around why they should buy your book.
Okay, so the chapter one, it speaks about my childhood. So if you want to know what Alicia's childhood really was, where the journey begins, finding me, the death sentence, given a death sentence, which I thought was a death sentence. And the good thing about the book, it gives you information concerning HIV/AIDS. Chapter 6, it speaks about living with HIV/AIDS. Chapter 7, there is still hope. Chapter 8, my faith was tested. And chapter 9, amazing grace.
Wow.
Why I would encourage you to get a copy of this book? It carries you on a journey from my childhood to my diagnosis and after my diagnosis. But the key thing in it is God being in the midst of it, in the midst of everything that I've been through from childhood to even now. He was in the midst, He was at the center of it all. And my faith in God, I will not say the medication hasn't helped, the doctors hasn't helped, but I owe it all to God. It shows you of God's love, His grace, and His mercy, and that no matter what you are going through, there's life in the situation. There's a saying that I've heard: broken crayons still color. Even when something is broken, there's beauty that comes from it, and the Lord does give us beauty for our ashes. So I recommend this book to you because it's a book filled with hope. It will inspire you, it will make you take an introspect of your own life, and it will encourage you, if you're not serving God, to surrender to Him. So that's why I
Wow.
wrote the
That's so beautiful, sis. And look, I think a few people online may have a few questions to ask you. Please make sure you drop your questions in the chat because we're going to wrap up. But I've got three final ones. What would you say to people out there who, one, they may have been exposed and are afraid to get tested, because I know there are still some people who still think HIV is a death sentence and we'd rather not know. And then the second one is to those who are living with it or they have a family member living with it. And I know that's another challenge in itself, right? Um, we've got a question. In fact, I'll let you take this one first. Mag Menz is saying, are you married with kids?
I am married at the moment, but separated for
Mm,
personal reasons, but no kids as yet.
yes, no kids as yet. All right. Um, what would your encouragement be to someone who is frightened that I might have this, like I think I may have been exposed to this thing, but I'm so scared I don't want to get tested? What would you say to such a person?
I would encourage them to tell them that, the reason why persons are afraid is because we are told that it's a death sentence. HIV is no longer a death sentence. I would encourage you to get tested. Why the earlier you find out will be the better, that you can actually go on your ARVs that will help you to become undetectable. Undetectable does, as I said, doesn't mean that you're healed. It just means that you're not able to pass it on to your partner.
And what's the
Being on your
ARV? Sorry.
The ARV is the antiretroviral drug, right? What it does, it helps to give you a longer life. So it extends your lifespan, right? But also it helps you not to spread the virus because you become undetectable where you're not able to pass it on to your partner. I would also encourage you that there's something called a window period. So
Mhm,
sometimes you will go do a test and you do the test and it comes back out negative. Negative doesn't necessarily mean that it is negative. Negative
mhm,
can be that because of the window period, there's not enough antibodies in the body to show up in the blood work that you have it. But it doesn't
mm,
mean that you're negative. That is why, as early as 4 weeks to 6 months, they recommend that you do a test. So if you do a test today, go back the next 3 months and 3 months after that to rule out all possibilities if you're negative or positive. So, as I said, I would encourage you, it's not a death sentence anymore, to find out early so you can get the proper ARV, which is the antiretroviral viral drug, to help to build up your immune system and help you to become undetectable, that you won't be able to pass it on to your partner. For the person who has it and probably is afraid to tell their family member, I can understand why, because of the stigma and the discrimination that is out there. That is why you have somebody like me, Minister Alicia Anderson, who will be the voice for you. Reason
mhm,
why I came out is that I had friends, I had family who accepted it. So if I can get more people to accept me, my message to them: if you can accept me, if you can love me, go ahead and love somebody else who has it.
mhm,
HIV persons or persons living with AIDS, they are like anybody else who has a chronic illness. They deserve love also. And if you are showing them that love, it will help them to go and get the necessary help that they need and to be put on medication to live a normal, healthy life. So, um, I know it's scary because what makes it scary is the stigma and the discrimination. And trust me, I'm working hard, other people are working hard to force to kind of cut down the whole stigma thing. Will we get rid of it? Not 100%, but at somewhat, where people become more comfortable being able to share to their family member, disclosing to the family member, and it doesn't become an issue. And that it not becoming an issue, they'll be able to go to the different clinics or private doctors to get their medication to live a normal, healthy life. And I want to encourage you that even if you do find out that you're HIV positive, it is not the end of the world. You can go back. God did it for me. He's no respecter of anybody. If He did it for me, He can do it for you. Go back and revisit those dreams, those visions, whatever it is that you had before of the diagnosis. Go back and visit it and start making moves. Write the vision down and move with it, because there is still hope after a diagnosis.
wow. Wow. What a powerful way to end this our time together. I love that note at the end. HIV is not a death sentence. Before, for some people, previously, before we had all these innovations in healthcare, for some people, HIV was a death sentence. And for
Right.
some people, they did not understand that they had all these resources available to them. I remember many years ago, a very, very close friend of mine was living overseas and she flew to Jamaica and called me to say her daughter, who happened to be my classmate,
Wow.
um, had been diagnosed. This girl and I sat in the same class in primary school. She'd been diagnosed with HIV. And within 3 months, that young lady died.
Wow.
I was at the time in my early 20s, maybe about 24, 25. So you know, Alicia, you probably can imagine what that was for me.
Yes.
Someone that close to me had been diagnosed with HIV. And I remember assisting my friend, who was an older woman, and
Right.
to take her daughter to the hospital. And this young woman, who'd only recently, like maybe within 2 weeks, had only just discovered this. And she was physically paralyzed, physically
Wow.
paralyzed. And later on, I worked in the health field and I went to my medical officer because it really, I couldn't understand what happened. And she explained to me that it wasn't HIV that killed her, it was her mind,
Yes.
right? And there's
Yes.
this kind of paralysis that people find out that they've got it. They think they're gonna die, and their body, they have mentally shut themselves down
Yes.
because they've given up. And so their body responds according to what their mind is saying. Oh, I'm dead now. Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
Kernifa. It your mind is powerful, right? And she passed away like within, I think it was less than 6 months, that the lady called me and said, my daughter has passed away and I'm coming home to bury her. And you like, this was double shock, right?
Right.
And I remember the day we went to the hospital. I drove her in my car. We went to the University of the West Indies Hospital. And when she came into my car from Ocho Rios, she was able to walk and get herself in the car. By the time we reached Kingston, we were literally carrying her. Within the space of less than 2 hours, her mind was going through all of the. By the time we finished with the hospital, we literally had. She had to go to the toilet, I remember. And I told her, Mom, look, I'll take her, I'll follow her. And she was paralyzed. And I was wondering what on earth was happening because, like, she was just HIV positive. There was nothing else wrong with her. And by the time we were finished and we were ready to go home with her,
Right.
we had to lift her up and carry her physically to put in the car. And within 3 months, she passed away.
Wow.
And I remember when I spoke to my medic, I was very young. I was about 24 years old at the time. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, this is what they call HIV related paralysis. She has given up on life and her
Wow.
body has followed suit and responded. All her organs shut down, and it's a phenomena. And so, why am I sharing this? You are saying, where are you going with this? I'm saying that this young woman that I have here on this platform has just told us that at around the same age, the same thing happened to her. But here she is 17 years later. Not only has she been able to accomplish some of her personal dreams that she had as a young child, she has gone past them and achieved so much more. She's an active minister. She's traveling around advocating for people with HIV, being an advocate because she has the first-hand experience. She's motivating, encouraging, uplifting, empowering other people, not just those who are diagnosed, but with families and communities that have this experience. And I love what you said at the end, Alicia. If you haven't been diagnosed yet, she's shared some nuggets, right? Diagnosis is not a one-off thing. You might need to do 3 or 4 different um, tests just because of the way this virus operates. But your
Right.
life does not have to end there. You can go on, get your diagnosis, but you have hope. Hope in modern medicine that has provided us tools and resources to help us to extend our lifespan, but not just for us to live longer, but to also give us a sense of protection that we are able to have she's a married woman. She's a married woman. She has a husband. And so she's able to have a partner without infecting her partner, right?
Amen.
And for some people, I know some people might be wondering, why she hasn't had children. Giving birth to a child is a different thing from having a partner. So there's so many other risks in there, and I'm not sure if our modern medicine has figured out how we can do that safely as yet. But I
Yes, we can.
believe you can give
Yes,
birth.
we can. It just came out in
Want to
the clean.
touch on that just a little
Co-
bit, bring this to a close.
all right. I haven't in terms of, but I saw it I glimpsed it in the paper that
Yeah,
from transmission to mother, the scientist has come up with a way that mothers can transmit it to their unborn child.
very good, very good,
Right,
very
and for it to come out, that means that CDC has approved of it.
good. That yes, all right. So
Right.
so you see, so for scientists like me, and sometimes people bash us and say we are this and that. Pray for us so that we continue to develop more cutting edge and innovative ways to protect people's health. You know, how great would
Right.
it be for those women who are scared of giving birth to a child to be able to access that, that intervention that can allow them to
But
have the
also, Stephanie, but also
yeah,
before this intervention, what is recommended that once you go to the clinic and you find out that you're pregnant and they find out that you have HIV, because they have to test you for that, they put you on medication. And from what I've heard is that when the child is born, they put the child on some trial drugs.
mhm,
Within a month after, they
mhm.
test back the child, and once the child is okay, then the child is okay, right? But
That's
they
great.
recommend that you don't do breastfeeding or
Yes,
normally or giving birth naturally, but for you to do a
natural
C-section,
C-section.
right?
Yeah, so the blood
Right. So
doesn't
you can
mix.
still
Yeah,
have, and there are many persons, I don't understand it because I'm not God and I'm not a scientist, but there are many
yes,
persons who go unprotected with probably the lady who has it, and the man is unprotected, the man is on doesn't have it, and the kids are born without the virus. So
yes.
sometimes I just think it's have to do with the immune system. I don't know. I ain't a doctor
I
or
can
scientist.
explain. I can explain why that happens. And
Go
I was,
ahead.
funnily enough, I was listening to a man of God, and we were teaching on. It was a teaching on prayer.
Right.
But let me explain a little bit how that works.
Right.
Right?
Right.
When a woman gives birth, the baby you carry, your blood does not mix with the baby's blood. Right? So even though the baby is
Right.
connected to you, the baby's blood is different from yours. So if you can
Right.
safely deliver the child, that's why I can imagine that's why C-section would work. Because
Right.
if you do have to go the placental route, to have natural birth, then
Mm-hmm.
the chances of the baby's blood mixing with the mom's blood is second to none. Right?
Right.
It's almost impossible. So that's why when you give birth, the baby's blood does not mix with the mom's blood. What happens though, if you do natural birth, because there's so much fluid and so on,
Right.
you can't prevent that from happening, but it's possible. But
Right.
if you do C-section and you cut the cord, the baby's blood does not get contaminated by the mother's blood.
Right.
And by the way, this is why Jesus could be God and man at the same time, because although that's because his father, because he was not naturally conceived by a man, as in a
Yeah.
as in a masculine man. He only was carried by the mother, but during childbirth, his blood was not contaminated with his mother's blood. That's why Jesus was 100% God and 100% man at the
Amen.
same time. All right.
Amen.
Lady Alicia Anderson, I cannot thank you enough for spending this 1 hour of your time on this platform, sharing your journey. I'm going to give you 1 more minute for you to raise up that beautiful book again and just tell people where they can get a copy of your book.
Sure. So it's HIV, My Journey Through Grace. You can get it at, if you are outside of Jamaica, you can go to the lovely Amazon, type in the name Alicia Anderson, and you should see this book, and you can make your purchase. You can just, go over to the cart right now and put it in the cart. And I think within 2 days, you'll get your book. Also, if you're here in Jamaica, you can get it at York Pharmacy, which is in Halfway Tree. Is it okay for me to give my social media um,
Please,
info?
please do.
Okay, sure. So for Facebook, it is Alicia Anderson. For Instagram, it's Ali underscore rebirth underscore Anderson. For TikTok, it is Lady Alicia Anderson or Ali underscore rebirth Anderson. And for YouTube, yes, I do have my own YouTube. It is Alicia Anderson 5349.
Alicia Anderson 5349.
That's right.
Yeah. Wow. Alicia, thank you so much. I am
Thank you for
super, super,
having me.
super proud of you, proud of your journey, proud of your resilience, proud of the grace of God upon your life. And I just want to celebrate you and just thank you so much for fighting against the odds, for keep rowing upstream even when it became difficult. I know that there were times when your hands became tired and you felt like letting go of the oars, but you just, and there were days probably when you did let go, and but because of your faith, you allowed God to carry you. I'm super
Amen.
inspired and encouraged by your journey, and I just want to say big thank you for joining
Thank you
us
for
today.
having me.
Ladies and
Thank you for
gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, what an amazing woman. What an amazing purpose driven woman. And I know we have the purpose discovery and fulfillment coach. We have a Jamaica's mother's perspective. We've got, our creative biz coach, our prophetic author, Mag Men's, and many others online with us today. Thank you so much for those who are joining us on Facebook and on My Career, My Calling YouTube channel. This has been another in the episode of My Career, My Calling. As I said, this author is our very first author in our virtual book tour series that we will be bringing to you. I hope you will join me next week as we are going to bring you another exciting episode, and we have another author lined up for you next week. All right, next week we will be bringing you another inspiring interview, another inspiring session on the My Career, My Calling. I also will be interviewed on the Self Seed podcast next week. So I hope you will join me on that journey as we share. I'm going to be sharing my story, but I'll also bring you another author next week. And actually, next week we will be bringing you an amazing man. And we're going to be talking about the diaspora. I've got an amazing scholar from the African diaspora who will be joining me next week to talk about raising children in the diaspora and how you can help them with their career journey, without becoming overwhelmed and without short circuiting their future. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been an amazing time. Thank you once again to my special guest, Alicia Anderson, author of HIV, My Journey Through Grace. Please check out her books on Amazon. And please, when you read the book, leave a review for her. It's really important. So thank you so much. And I'll meet you here same time next week for another series in the My Career, My Calling. Bye bye for now.